Right now, somewhere in America, a 22-year-old is sitting in an old car outside a grocery store. His checking account shows exactly $100.43. To most people, it's barely enough to matter. To him, it feels like everything. He has student loans, rent due next week, and a full-time job that barely covers the bills. This is the story of two friends. Same city, same age, same income, same starting point. One spent his money, the other invested it. 36 years later, their lives couldn't have looked more different. You're 22 years old, fresh out of college. Your best friend Danny graduated with you. Same degree, same salary, same dreams. On payday, Danny celebrates. New sneakers, a newer phone, dinner with friends. For the first time in years, life feels exciting. You think about doing the same. After all, you've worked hard. Don't you deserve it? Then you remember something your grandfather once told you. The first dollar you invest works harder than the 1,000th. Instead of buying something you'll forget next month, you open a brokerage account. You invest your first $100 into a low-cost index fund. Nothing exciting happens. No fireworks, no instant profit. A year passes. You're 23 now. Whenever you can, you invest another $50 each month. Some months, it's easy. Others, not even close. One month your car breaks down. Another month your rent increases. Sometimes life wins. Sometimes you skip investing completely. And that's okay. Danny is enjoying life. Weekend trips, concerts, new gadgets, looking at social media. It almost feels like he's winning. Meanwhile, your investment account still looks disappointingly small. You wonder if you're wasting your time. At 25, the market suddenly falls. Headlines scream panic. Experts argue on television. Words like crash and recession appear everywhere. You check your account. The balance is lower than it was weeks ago. Your stomach drops. Selling feels like the safest choice. Almost everyone around you says the same thing. But before pressing the sell button, you remember why you started. You weren't investing for this year. You were investing for decades. So instead of selling, you keep buying. Another $50, then another. It doesn't feel smart. It feels uncomfortable. But sometimes the right decision rarely feels comfortable in the moment. By 27, Danny gets promoted. He leases a brand new SUV. Vacation photos fill his Instagram. People congratulate him. Meanwhile, you're still driving the same old sedan. You still bring lunch from home. Nobody compliments that. Nobody posts about delayed gratification. Your investment account finally reaches about $6,000. After 5 years, it doesn't feel impressive until you realize something. That account isn't growing because of luck. It's growing because you never stopped feeding it. At 29, your salary finally increases. For the first time in years, you have extra money. You could upgrade your lifestyle. Instead, you upgrade your future. Your monthly investment increases from $50 to $150. Surprisingly, you barely notice the difference because somewhere along the way, living below your means stopped feeling like a sacrifice. It simply became who you were. And without realizing it, the habit you started with just $100 had become part of your identity. You're just when life finally feels stable. The market crashes again. This time, it's worse. Month after month, your portfolio keeps falling. Everywhere you look, people are predicting the end. News anchors call it the worst downturn in years. Friends tell you investing isn't worth the risk. Even Danny jokes, "So, did you lose everything yet?" You smile, but you don't answer. Because the truth is, you didn't lose anything. You still own the same shares. The prices changed. Your ownership didn't. So while fear spreads, your automatic investment keeps going. Every single month, without headlines, without excitement, without applause. 3 years later, the market begins recovering. Not overnight, slowly, quietly, almost unnoticed. One evening after work, you open your investment app. Your balance reads $41,284. You stare at the screen for several seconds. Not because you're rich, because for the first time, Compound growth feels real. You remember that tiny $100 investment years ago. Back then, it felt meaningless. Now, it feels like the smartest decision your younger self ever made. Danny is doing well. His income is higher than ever. He has a beautiful house, a newer truck, nice vacations. From the outside, everything looks perfect, but appearances rarely tell the whole story. Car payments, credit cards, personal loans. Every raise disappears almost as quickly as it arrives. Meanwhile, your lifestyle hasn't changed much. You still avoid buying things just to impress people. The difference is, your money has quietly been working while you sleep for years. At 38, life becomes busier than ever. You get married. You buy a home. A child is born. Unexpected expenses show up without warning. For a while, investing becomes the last thing on your mind. But something incredible happens. You don't stop investing because you no longer depend on motivation. Everything is automatic. Every month, money leaves your paycheck before you even think about spending it. That's when you realize real wealth isn't built by making perfect decisions. It's built by removing the need to make the decision over and over again. You're 42. Your income has grown again. This time, you increase your monthly investment to $300. You barely notice the difference, but your future certainly will. Something else has changed too. You stop checking your account every day. Years ago, a small drop would ruin your mood. Now, you barely react because you finally learned something the market teaches every long-term investor. Volatility is temporary. Time is powerful. At 47, your investment account passes $310,000. You don't celebrate. You don't post a screenshot online. You don't buy a luxury car. Instead, you notice something far more valuable. You sleep better. Unexpected bills don't scare you anymore. Money no longer controls every decision you make. Around the same time, Danny calls. Rising expenses have made life harder than expected. He's considering taking a second job, not because he isn't successful, but because almost everything he earned was spent keeping up with a lifestyle that never stopped getting more expensive. You hang up the phone, feeling grateful. Not because you made more money, but because years ago, you chose patience over instant gratification. And little by little, that decision changed everything. You're 51. The market falls again. It always does. The headlines return. This time is different. Sell before it's too late. Years ago, those words would have terrified you. Now, you simply nod and move on. You've lived through enough market crashes to understand something most people never do. Markets move in cycles. Fear comes and goes, but disciplined investors stay. You don't stop investing. You don't panic. You simply let time keep doing what it has always done. Your portfolio briefly falls, then slowly begins climbing again. A few months later, it crosses $520,000. At 55, your youngest child is getting ready for college. The tuition bill arrives. This time, you write the check. Not because you're wealthy, because you prepared. The years of quiet discipline gave you something more valuable than money. Options. And options create freedom. You're 58. One quiet Saturday morning, you scroll through decades of account statements. The first deposit, $100. Then another. Then another. You open the investment summary. For a moment, you think you're reading at $1,108,463. You don't smile because of the money. You smile because you remember the young 22-year-old who almost spent that first $100. He had no idea what patience would one day become. This story is fictional, but the principle behind it is very real. Small amounts, invested consistently, over long periods of time, can grow into something extraordinary, not because of luck, because of discipline. You don't need to be born rich. You don't need perfect timing. Sometimes the hardest part isn't finding the perfect investment. It's believing that a small beginning is worth making. Because one day, you'll look back and realize the most valuable investment you ever made wasn't just your first $100. It was the decision to never stop. This story is fictional and created for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Investing involves risk, and past performance does not guarantee future results. Always do your own research or consult a qualified financial professional before making investment decisions.